Hey everyone, my name is Astre. Welcome to my video for the argument for why any player that is not at the top of the game should be playing one ascendancy and one ascendancy only Guardian. Now, what do I mean by top of the game? Well, I've gone ahead and thought about what are the common sticking points, what are the things that people have problems with in the game of Path of Exile, going from a total noob to intermediate to a pro or a racer or a streamer type situation. Someone making hundreds of defines in trade or pushing the game in SSF, etc. Right? Those are a very small percentage of the player base. And I think one of the issues in Path of Exile is those players say, oh, what's the best thing for me? Or what's the best thing for a noob? To them, though, a noob is someone with 1,000 hours and who is a softcore trade Andy and who has probably done several endgame bosses before, So I think the problem is that people don't realize just how much can go wrong in your first 1,000 hours of Path of Exile. We could spend hours talking about all the things that could go wrong, but we'll just go through a very basic, simple list. Do you have any issues with any of the following? The build you will be playing, including stuff like what to take for the labs, how the labs are going to affect the rest of the build, going to maps, capping resist, getting damage during axe. In a lot of ways, Melee is actually one of the best league starters, Bone Shatter, but a lot of people have trouble understanding how to get a weapon. And that's totally fine, totally understandable. It took me many leagues of playing Melee to understand when my weapon was weak and how to get a better one. Common sticking points for the builds. Fizz mitigation is the most obvious one. I see a lot of people say, hey, I'm going to play Witch. And then they just try to walk into white maps without any fizz mid at all. And they get one shot over and over and over again. And generally, if you are getting one shot continuously, repeatedly, like failing multiple maps in a row type of thing, that is going to be Fizmit most of the time. Avoidance. Most builds these days recommend having avoidance. There's not really that many that don't, only ones that, before the nerf RIP RF, Righteous Fire, that would say, hey, we have so much resistance and mitigation and regen, we don't need avoidance. Avoidance means things like evasion, how likely you are to evade a hit. Block, how likely are you to block a hit? And spell suppression, although in some ways not avoidance, is also avoidance. It's kind of a hybrid, right? How to get those and when are they good, who are they good on, how to mitigate the downsides of them. Ailment immunity. There's very easy ways to get them ailment immunity, but not everyone can afford to take purity of elements. How do you get it? Do you get it on your gear? Where are you getting certain stats on your jewels? Are you going for reduced duration, reduced effect, or avoidance? 100% avoidance is immunity. Bleed, corrupting, blood. You're going to need immunity to that, or you're going to get one shot later. And poison chaos resist, also needed on every build in the end of the game in Path of Exile now. We also have how to complete the Atlas or what content to farm. The Atlas skill tree is insanely complicated. A new player can copy it from someone else, but are they going to understand the nuances of why their build is failing on Expedition? Maybe not. What gears to look for endgame, including clusters, Eldritch Implicits, and corruptions. The endgame gearing of Path of Exile has only gone up in complexity. I think it's actually one of the best things GGG has done is really open up the endgame itemization, making uniques good, making Eldritch Implicits, very good stuff, but it's very overwhelming for a new player. And even honestly, if you have thousands of hours, you might not understand all you need to know. How to use Path of Building, that's what POB is, to determine your optimal setup at that point in the game, including gem links. A lot of people don't even have POB installed, don't know what it is, which once again is fine, but we're trying to help those players as much as possible. If you answered yes to any of the above, you should consider one of the variants of Guardian to be your optimal league starter in any of the major leagues. Softcore, SSF, hardcore, SSF. It is that good, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how good it is for league start. It truly, and there are players where this is not the best build. If you are a truly pro player and you're trying to zoom, bow build's probably going to be slightly faster. But if you ever have had any problems with anything in Passive Exile, this is going to be vastly better. It's just a much comfier build. You don't have to worry about getting a weapon. You can literally go to red maps without a weapon, as I'll show you later. So if you're new to the game, this is an Act 4. There's 10 acts, and we are against someone named Duresso. He's one of 2 bosses leading up to the final boss of the act, and he's a boss that has given little people problems in the past. In the modern day, he's relatively quite tame, but he is something that you are going to have to beat. And most of the time that when you see clips of people beating this boss at this point, they have a very optimized setup. They know exactly where their tree was supposed to go. They go ahead and get the links that they need to get. If you're totally new and you don't know, a skill gem is supported by supports, and they're generally between 20 and 50% more damage. And at this point in the game, you're at a 4 length, so you're at about 100% more damage. So people and they usually have a good weapon as well. They have their first lab. Now we have our first lab, but as you're going to see here, we have literally 1 minion that spawns. That minion comes from our first lab. We don't have any gems. We are not using any gems here. The only gem that's on is Herald of Purity, and that does literally nothing. As you can see here, he phases every time he takes enough damage. Our minion taunts the boss, does ludicrous damage, can't die other than he despawns, and he gives you 20% reduced damage taken effectively. 20% of the damage you take goes to him. So the only thing you can say about my build right now, other than the fact that I have this guy, is that I have some cold resistance, and I am slightly over leveled for the zone. Now the reason for that is because this guy's AoE is so great, he kills everything around him. You see, that was a completely brain dead fight. No problems, no issues at all. Literally not. It's like I haven't even leveled any skills. If this was another game where you have skills that you level, like Diablo, I haven't even leveled any skills. This is one skill that we get from playing Guardian. Every Guardian build will have this at this point. Doesn't matter if you're SRS, doesn't matter if you're Absolution. And you can see we're also clearing with this guy. These mobs are dying. You can see our XP going up. Incredibly brain dead. Now, I decided to use my skills at this point. My main skill, which is Absolution, which I do damage, and if those minions die, they spawn these guys who continuously send out lightning from the sky. There's also the Herald of Purity Sentinels running around, those little dudes with the staves. And you can see my big guy went down, all my other minions went down and started doing nothing to those mobs. But right now we have these guys up and our big boy up, and everything just dies around. We don't even have to cast most of the time. So not only are you very, very in a very good position for beating bosses, but for clearing, you just have to walk around. Most of the stuff in Path of Exile that's going to give you a problem in terms of enemies are going to die without you having to think about it on this build. It's going to allow you to focus on some of the stuff that we need focusing on, right? And that's totally dependent on where you're at in the game. If you're totally new, you get to maps or something, you're going to your brain's going to explode with how much stuff there is to learn. That's why I recommend playing a very OP, very simple build like this. And this build is an order of magnitude greater than any other league start in terms of ease, in terms of simplicity. Now, there are other league starts that are just as good, just as fast if you're a good player. The bow stuff, lightning arrow, tornado shot, ignite stuff. Elemental arrow, not elemental arrow, sorry, explosive arrow, and Vol Flame Blast. But in terms of not having to understand anything about the game, this is by far the best. I've already tested this, by the way. I had a good friend of mine play Path of Exile for the first time. I played this build. I made him play this build, and he's a very hardcore, very extreme player. He actually quit the game. Or not quit the game, but he re-rolled to a new character in SSF because this in Trade League was too easy for him. It is truly astounding how good this build is. Now, we're just running around. We're just running to the next place. I'll go ahead and skip ahead a little bit here. Oh, there we are. This fight, I do this fight twice. Once with my minions that aren't this big guy that come from my skill gems, and once without them, just to kind of show the difference. So you can see in the top left of the screen, we are able to track our minions' life, HP, and how many there are. And we didn't put our curse on. We didn't really do anything. We just walked in a circle. He's dead. This is it without any of those minions. Now I do have Convocation on. I think I take it off, but should not be sound in this clip. But regardless, it's not too big of a deal. Have the all chat on, global chat. Definitely gotta remember to put D&D on next time. So this is another boss. So that was the two bosses for Act 4, two of them. Now this is the final boss for Act 4. His name is Malachi. He's not really a big problem these days. At least I've never had a problem with him on any of my builds. But he used to be a huge problem for a lot of people. He used to be like the final boss of the game, and he used to be really hard. And he will still give you a problem as a new player if you don't understand some of his mechanics. But essentially, as you're going to see, where our dudes just nuke him down so quick. So when he has the shield on, he's invulnerable. And you have to go kill this other person, Piety. And you see how quick we nuke him down. We don't even have 100% uptime on our other minions because we don't have a chance to have uptime on them. He kills her then, throws the spear through her. Rest in peace, Piety. And then we come to him in his second phase. See how fast the damage comes out. And I'm playing this really sloppy. I'm trying in these clips to not play it like some mechanical god. Not that I am one, but I want it to be as clear as possible that a new player can do exactly what I'm doing here. There it is. Simple stuff. This is another clip of another boss. I don't think we need to show this. I think it's quite clear. This is another hard boss, Max 5. Even more damage now, going down even faster. And you can really just kind of sit there and AFK a lot of stuff. Now, you will, if you do get hit by this beam or something, you will die, but that's on any build at this point almost. Okay, so that was leveling. Now, this is the same build, level 93, softcore trade. However, I was in the middle of doing some cheesing against the league mechanic. So I did some stuff suboptimally here. So all I really have on that's going to do that's really of any value whatsoever, the +2 minion helmet, still pretty easy to get in trade. And on a weapon, a +1 weapon. Nothing else on my gear is even remotely good or we care about. Also a +1 amulet. So, oh, actually, no, I take the weapon off for this just to prove a point. So you can see I don't even have the weapon on for this. And this is a T16, not juiced or anything, but, you know, This is pretty bad gear, pretty bad setup, not optimized at all. This is about, I think what a new player can expect when they get to T16s now. That being said, you do need to get your gems leveled and everything, as always, but you just kind of walk through. And I don't have convocation on here as well. Generally, you do want that on wall mapping and to not use it on bosses. Nor my terrible shield charging as well. Like I said, I'm not a mechanical god. So this big boy we get from our first lab, we play the build pretty standard stuff. Now I do absolution after Act 1 and then Herald of Purity. You can't just do SRS from level 4. You can't do Rolling Magma Flame Wall. I don't understand how people do damage with that. I must be missing something because it feels just absolutely horrendous. Now here we have the Maven Keystone that brings in bosses from other maps. This is a T16. We're bringing in bosses from other maps, and this little guy's ghosted. Now, so we have this little guy ghosted. We have this these other mobs spawning. Now the big mob comes in. He's jumping on us. We hit our VMS, right? 9,000 VMS there. And we have 4 bosses hitting us, right? You can see our life bar goes down occasionally. I'm standing totally still. I'm not, once again, not playing like you're supposed to play. Trying to make it as similar to a new player as possible. I had to sit here and tank this stuff, right? I could have put on my Volmolten Shell again. Could have put my flask back on. But you can see I really have there's no issues here whatsoever. So that's why I say you should absolutely be playing Guardian. Now, what does Guardian is for this big boy right here. Now, the other stuff on Guardian is great too. But the big boy is the absolute peak of brain dead easy in this game. Let's go and take a look at Path Building and take a look at what we're actually... So this is the tree. You can see we don't really have anything on. This is a +1, a +1. That's it. Everything else is life and resist. Oh, actually, this is a +1. Nope. And we don't have an anoint. We are already... Now, this is per minion. We're already at over 2.5 mil DPS. Just for existing. We just exist, and we are 2.5 mil. We are ailment immune. We are spell block capped. It's not that hard to get block capped as well. We also have crazy regen through time of need. Now, time of need is not something you want to crutch on. You don't want this to be your only source of sustain, but this is actually surprisingly better than it seems once you have other sources of sustain. In that clip, we were running Divine Shield, and we went down here without Eldritch Battery. That was from the older build. But pretty simplistic stuff. You just come up here, and very early on, you want to get the Convocation cooldown mastery. See if it's on the other one. This one. And you want to get the AoE mastery. The reason for those is because the big boy scales with AoE, and the big boy scales, like, he's super slow, so you want to be bringing him back to you constantly. This is a Summon Raging Spirits build. There's plenty of good build guides for this, more in depth on YouTube. I'm going to be making my own just because it's the most easy and default. There are a couple other skills, though, that are awesome. In that clip, I was using Absolution in the leveling stuff. And there's also Herald of Purity, Herald of Agony. Going to be super underrated. Animate Weapon, if you can deal with the clunky and jankiness. I hate that. So I'm never playing Animate Weapon if it's not Chains of Command. And so you can see this is just the most slam dunk league starter that's ever been in the history of this game for a new player. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will post an actual build guide with actual leveling tips and techniques and everything. I hope this has convinced you should be playing Guardian. And if you're thinking of anything else, you can play something else if you want to play a melee style build, if you want to play a bow build. If you want to play those builds and have fun, go right ahead. But in terms of optimal setup, if you're ever dying multiple times on a boss, if you're ever getting stuck on progression, if you're ever having trouble farming your content like Expedition, this is your build. All right, I'm out. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.